The end is always near. For millennia, this has been a fundamental truth of the human story. But what does the end truly mean? Is it the slow decay of an empire, a ghost story from the distant past? Or is it a final irrevocable silence, an empty chapter at the end of our book? Today, we'll explore this question through the lens of two powerful works. First, we'll look back, with Dan Carlin's The End is Always Near, to see how history has been shaped by collapse. Then we'll turn our gaze to the horizon, with Toby Ord's The Precipice, to confront the stark probabilities of our own survival in the century to come. We often view history with a sense of immunity. We simplify it into a neat, digestible sequence. Rise, peak, fall, and then the inevitable dark ages. But Dan Carlin challenges this black and white perspective. He invites us into the visceral reality of these moments. We walk the doomed streets of Nineveh, the capital of the merciless Assyrian Empire, and witness its brutal and final obliteration. We experience the fall of Rome not as a single event, but as a slow, creeping plague of decay that remade the world. Carlin asks us to linger in the ambiguity of these collapses. He pushes us to question whether the end of a civilization is always a plunge into darkness, or if it's merely a metamorphosis into something entirely different. The end of the Western Roman Empire wasn't the end of people, it was the end of a system. For some, it was a catastrophe. For others, it might have been a liberation. It's a history that is less about a light switching off, and more about a complex rewiring of society. This forces us to ask another question, a deeply human one, that echoes through Carlin's work. What kind of people do these times produce? Do hard times truly create hard people? And if so, what of the corollary? Has our modern era of unprecedented comfort and convenience made us soft, ill-equipped to deal with the kind of systemic shocks our ancestors weathered? This isn't a judgment, but a critical inquiry into our own resilience. Are we still tough enough to survive the end of our own world? This nuanced view also applies to another of humanity's recurring apocalyptic partners, pandemics. We have a tendency to view major plagues as black swans, unforeseeable, random events that change everything. But Carlin prompts us to question the unforeseeable part. Historians and epidemiologists have always known that a devastating pandemic was not a matter of if, but when. The specifics might be a surprise, but the event itself is one of history's most reliable plot points, a known vulnerability that tests the toughness and adaptability of any civilization it strikes. But among all these historical threats, one stands apart, marking the pivot point from the past to our precarious present: the nuclear threat. For Carlin, this is where history holds its breath. The Cold War generation lived under a psychological sword of Damocles, a constant, low-level hum of potential annihilation. It was the first time humanity built a weapon that could truly end the story for everyone. This threat didn't cause a collapse. It created a new, permanent state of existential anxiety. And this is where our perspective shifts, from the history of our fears to the mathematics of our future. This is the world Toby Ord describes in The Precipice. He argues that we are living in a unique and uniquely dangerous time. The natural risks are still there, but they have been dwarfed by the existential risks we've engineered ourselves, with the nuclear threat being the first and most visceral example. Ord's work is not about historical analogy. It's about cold, hard probability. And Ord gives us the odds. The chance of humanity failing to survive the next 100 years, of falling off this tightrope into complete and total extinction, is 1 in 6. Let that sink in. One roll of the die, and the entire human story, everything we have ever been and everything we could ever be, is over. Forever. It is a chilling, staggering number. And this 1 in 6 chance is Ord's optimistic view, a number that presumes we work tirelessly to prevent our own demise. The threats are the children of our own genius. An unaligned artificial intelligence, a bioengineered pandemic far deadlier than any natural black swan, and of course, the ever-present possibility of a nuclear winter. These are the risks, Ord says, demand our focus, because they are the most likely to push us over the edge. And what would we lose? Ord paints a picture of a vast, almost unimaginable human potential, a future where we could travel between the stars, unlock new dimensions of perception, and gain a profound understanding of reality. All of it, the entire sprawling epic of our future, is what's at stake. And so, we are left suspended. The ghosts of history, through Carlin's eyes, whisper that the end is rarely the end, but a messy, painful transformation that demands a certain toughness to endure. Yet the stark probabilities of the future, as calculated by Ord, present us with a genuine possibility of a final, silent curtain. It is worth trying to avoid that fate. Of course it is. But a nagging thought remains. If we, as a species, prove to be stupid enough to cause our own extinction, then maybe we just weren't worth saving. Let's hope, for the sake of all that potential, that we are not that stupid.